Good afternoon once again. We are now arriving with this lecture right at the border between what constitutes early church history and what tends to be called medieval church history, or the church in the Middle Ages. Scholars disagree or have differences of opinion about where exactly to draw the line between early and middle. In my opinion, there's two main remaining subjects to deal with as part of our study of early church history. And those are these. First being the pontificate of Gregory the Great and his series of missions to the north and to the west into Europe. And second, the initial birth and spread of Islam. And so we'll spend the bulk of this week's lecture and discussion time on the first of these and cover the next in our final week. Our quote for today comes from Pope Gregory the Great's significant text that we'll be reading from, called the Pastoral Rule, or the Rule of Gregory as it's sometimes known. He writes, "For there are several who possess incredible virtues, and who are exalted by great talents for training others. Those who are spotless in the pursuit of chastity, stout in the vigor of fasting, satiated in the feasts of doctrine, humble in the long suffering of patience, upright in the fortitude of authority, tender in the grace of kindness, and strict in the severity of judgment. To be certain, if they refuse to accept a position of spiritual leadership when they are called, they forfeit the majority of their gifts, gifts which they received not for themselves only, but also for others. When these people contemplate their own spiritual advantages and do not consider anyone else, they lose these goods because they desire to keep them to themselves." As we see here, these words really do frame Gregory's own experience well, as he is one who saw his gifts multiplied when he answered the call to give himself in service to others. In some sense, you could also take these words reflecting on the Church's own experience as it begins to reach out to share the gift of the gospel of Jesus Christ to new places and new lands, and receives gifts back to complement its life as its diversity is enhanced everywhere that the Church goes and the gospel is heard. Before we deal directly with Gregory and get into some of those mission initiatives that we trace back to him, like last week, we need to start the day by paying a little bit of attention again to some of the political and geographical details of the late 5th and early 6th centuries, just to get a better sense of the context in which Gregory was living and the Church was situated at this time. And so to this end, we're going to be introduced to some new groups of people: the Byzantines, the Franks, and the Lombards. I'm going to just give the caveat again that some of this material might seem a little bit tangential for a church history course. Even the word Byzantine is a term that kind of means complex and confusing, but again, it's important stuff to be aware of because it does help a great deal in understanding the way that church history goes forward and sets up for the Church's experience in the Middle Ages.